Why, hello there, and welcome back to Together with Lidi. We are returning to the Bible today. I am deciding to name this little section Bible Bits. It used to be called the Bible in a year, but I don't think I'm going to get through this in a year. But basically, we're continuing to read the Bible in order, a little bit at a time, especially for anybody who hasn't really heard the Bible before, or maybe has just read it by themselves. I find that sometimes having a new perspective can be really helpful. So basically, we're going to be using, again, just my little CEV Bible that I got. Oh man, it's 2009, I think it was. 2006. So this Bible is pretty old. I've had it for a very long time, and it's basically falling apart. But it's called Extreme Faith for anybody who is interested. I find it really helpful because at the beginning of every chapter, it gives a little bit of history and a little bit of details about what's going to be happening in that book. And throughout the chapters, there is notes that give context historically and also culturally about what was going on in that time. So this is a really great version if you are new to the Bible. I got this Bible when I was 9 years old, so I found this super helpful. And at the back, there's even resources such as maps and different little profiles on the different characters and if you're looking for specific help with a certain thing, like if you're feeling angry or depressed or even happy, they have a little index of Bible verses that can help you out. So I definitely recommend this. I got a little bit off track, I think, last time, so we're only going to be reading one chapter today. But what happened last time in the story was that Judah and Tamar had a baby. So that was quite an ordeal because Judah's son was married to Tamar. Then he died, and so the custom was that the next brother would marry his brother's widow. But that brother was wicked and wasn't allowing Tamar to get pregnant. He was prideful and didn't want to have a baby that would be considered his brother's baby. And so this continued on, and eventually Judah kind of said, like, I don't really want to risk my youngest son because all my other sons are dying whenever they are married to this woman. And so he told Tamar that she was going to have to wait until his youngest son was old enough to marry. But then he went back on his promise. So a little bit of trickery, I think, just like his father, Jacob. And Tamar kind of took things into her own hands and pretended to be a prostitute and got Judah to sleep with her and made herself pregnant. And so this was a whole dramatic thing where she almost got stoned to death, but Judah saw her and realized it was her. I guess he didn't know his own daughter-in-law when he slept with her. I'm not really sure what was going on there. That seems to happen in the Bible quite a bit, just people sleeping with each other and not knowing who they're sleeping with until later, which I find very fascinating. I don't know how that happens, but I guess it does happen. So that was the situation there. Tamar was being accused of sleeping with a prostitute. Judah, of course, it was fine for him to sleep with a prostitute. Tamar was accused of being a prostitute, which is worse than sleeping with a prostitute. So she was getting in trouble. Judah really had nothing to worry about. And then they had a baby. They had twins. And now we're moving on to chapter 39 in the book of Genesis, which is going back to Joseph, and he's in Egypt. We left at a bit of a cliffhanger a few chapters ago where he got sold by his jealous brothers. So now we're returning back, and we're going to find out what happens to him. So, chapter 39, Joseph and Potiphar's wife. The Ishmaelites took Joseph to Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, the king's official in charge of the palace guard. So Joseph lived in the home of Potiphar, his Egyptian owner. Soon Potiphar realized that the Lord was helping Joseph to be successful in whatever he did. Potiphar liked Joseph and made him his personal assistant, putting him in charge of his house and all of his property. Because of Joseph, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's family and fields. Potiphar left everything to Joseph. And with Joseph there, the only decision he had to make was what he wanted to eat. That sounds like a pretty awesome deal to me. Joseph was well built and handsome, and Potiphar's wife soon noticed him. She asked him to make love to her, but he refused and said, "My master isn't worried about anything in his house because he has placed me in charge of everything he owns. So no one in my master's house is more important than I am. The only thing he hasn't given me is you, and that's because you are his wife. I won't sin against God by doing such a terrible thing as this." She kept begging Joseph day after day, but he refused to do what she wanted or even to go near her. One day Joseph went to Potiphar's house to do his work, and none of the other servants were there. Potiphar's wife grabbed hold of his coat and said, "Make love to me." Joseph ran out of the house, leaving her hanging onto his coat. When this happened, she called in her servants and said, "Look, that Hebrew has come just to make fools of us. He tried to rape me, but I screamed for help, and when he heard me scream, he ran out of the house, leaving his coat with me." Potiphar's wife kept Joseph's coat until her husband came home. Then she said, "That Hebrew slave of yours tried to rape me, but when I screamed for help, he left his coat and ran out of the house." Potiphar became very angry and threw Joseph in the same prison where the king's prisoners were kept. While Joseph was in prison, the Lord helped him and was good to him. He even made the jailer like Joseph so much that he put him in charge of the other prisoners and of everything that was done in the jail. The jailer did not worry about anything because the Lord was with Joseph and made him successful in all that he did. And that brings us to the end of chapter 39. So, yeah, this is another one that is a little bit of a difficult read because we have someone who is being framed for rape, and he did nothing. He was just trying to do his job and be a good person. And there's nothing worse than being accused of doing something that you didn't do, especially when it's something so serious and your job is on the line. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever been accused or suspected of doing something you didn't do and it affected your job? I can't imagine what must have been going through his mind, and as a slave, this is a very serious thing. I think it was Discover the Word. They talked a little bit about this story, and one thing that they mentioned is that because Potiphar threw Joseph in jail instead of having him killed, it was likely that he knew Joseph was really innocent, and it might be because Potiphar's wife had been doing this before. So he knew not to really take it seriously, because if a slave really did try to rape someone in the household, they would definitely be put to death. And so, that was definitely, God was looking out for him, for sure. And so another big thing here is just the fact that, again, Joseph was put into such a place of honor. And this is just incredible because, even as a slave, you had different tiers of being a slave. And so depending on how much trust the master had in you, you were able to do different jobs. And now Joseph is in prison. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen Joseph, King of Dreams. And I guess there's also a play called Joseph and His Technicolor Dreamcoat, which I haven't seen. But if it sticks to this story generally, you probably know what's going to happen next. But we will get to that next time. So that brings us to the end. Next time we're going to read still in the book of Genesis. We're going to be in here for another few chapters. But in chapter 40, Joseph is going to be doing something really amazing that's going to help get him out of the bind that he's in right now. So leave a comment if something like this has ever happened to you, where somebody has lied or accused you or suspected you of something that has affected your job. And I look forward to hearing from you. And we'll talk to you next time.